Hey, working mom, have you registered for this year's Empowering the Working Mom Breakfast? If you live in the DMV area and you haven't, go to empoweringtheworkingmom.com to get your tickets. This is the last day to get your ticket. So be sure that you are there tomorrow, Saturday, May 17th, 2025 for the fourth annual Empowering the Working Mom Breakfast. See you there.
Welcome to Empowering the Working Mom podcast, the place where working moms find inspiration, support, and practical advice to thrive in their professional and personal lives while aligning it all with God. I'm your host, Latika Vines, a fellow working mom on a mission to empower you to embrace your God-given strength and resilience of balancing work and life while leading you to align it all with God. Twice monthly, we'll delve into topics that matter to you, from time management, advancing your career, mental health, your relationship with God, and so much more. Get ready for insightful interviews with inspiring working moms, experts, and thought leaders who'll share their wisdom, their experiences, their prayers, and their Tabitha moments. Because together, we can break down barriers, defy stereotypes, and rewrite the narrative of being a working mom. So get ready for your empowering moment. Welcome to the Empowering Working Mom podcast.
Hey, working moms, welcome to this episode of Empowering the Working Mom podcast. I am so glad that you are here with us today. And I'm excited to give you another empowering moment to help you take the initiative in aligning your work-life balance and your career vision with God so that you can have that fulfilling balance that you deserve, that is destined for you. You know, the season we've been diving into this topic of rest, something that we all need, but we do not prioritize. And to unpack rest, I am joined by our guest, our special guest, Donna, who helps individuals and entrepreneurs navigate change with clarity and confidence. But before we introduce our guest, if this topic resonates with you, I encourage you to share it with the first working mom that comes to your mind. And don't forget to check out our show notes with all of the important updates within our EWM community. Now, are you excited about today's guest? Because I know I am. As president of DJ Consulting Services Incorporated, Donna has spent over 25 years guiding people through personal transitions, business growth, and professional shifts. Powerful, right? With thousands of coaching hours and hundreds of workshops delivered, Donna blends practical strategies with a deeply compassionate approach. I love that so much. She's also the author of Aspects of Change: 9 Steps to Conquer Your Most Devastating Change, Develop Balanced Energy, and Create a Life You Love. Donna's mission is clear, and it is to help people move through change with more confidence, clarity, and choice so they can build a life and business they truly love. I am so excited to have Donna with us today to help us dive deeper into this topic of rest. So please welcome Donna to the Empowering the Working Mom podcast. Donna, I just want to say thank you. I'm so excited that you're here today. And I thank you. I'm so grateful because you bring that element of clarity and confidence that and peace and contentment that so many of us need. And so I'm so grateful that you are here today. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
Well, I love all the things that I've been able to accomplish that you mentioned. However, today I want to share something that explains to you why this topic is so important to me. For the last 6 months of 2024, a family member had a mental health crisis. And as the days turned into weeks, into months, and I assisted them, I felt myself falling apart. I was not getting the rest that I needed. I was not nurturing myself through the foods I ate or the systems I had in place. And fortunately, I was taking a course at the end of this process, and it was with a former coach. And I explained as each student had an opportunity what was going on in their life. And I told them what was going on, and she said, I have a good book for you. It's really going to help. That book, she said, was Aspects of Change. I then laughed because I had written that book in 2018, and she had been one of my beta readings, so she had definitely read the book. Why I share that is because even we know what we should do, sometimes life just snatches our breath away and we forget. And we always need reminders. And that was a reminder to me that after 20 years of teaching and coaching and writing, that I forgot. And I'm here to tell you that this is something that we need to take serious, reclaiming ourselves.
Thank you for sharing that. There's so many of us that, like you, share and give advice and, inspire people, but we often forget to take our own advice, if you will. Because we're so consumed with making sure everybody else is okay and they're where they need to be, that we don't sit and say, okay, am I okay? Am I where I need to be? And so I appreciate you sharing that, because I'm sure so many of us um can definitely agree with that or relate to that. So with that, I want to dig right into our topic for today. And I want to ask you, how can you reclaim your identity with rest? Because so many of us are consumed with everything else. So how do you get that back? How do you regain that when the world keeps on turning?
We can experience productivity and not realize that we're heading towards burnout. I want to give you 2 scenarios. I'm at my desk, I'm working hard. I've passed lunch, it was on my calendar, I didn't stop. And finally, I ran to get something to eat, unhealthy, and I came back. The second scenario, I was awarded the responsibility of being the lead consultant for a $2.5 million project. I'm like, yes, I made it. I made it. However, I didn't take on an assistant, and my plate was already full. The project was successful, but at the end, I was on the verge of burnout. So when you ask me, how can you reclaim your identity? We have to realize first that sometimes we give it away. No one chained me to that desk and said, you can't take 15 minutes to eat. And even when I came back to the desk, I didn't stop working. And when I took that project, I didn't have the support system around me to be successful. That is one way that we can start reclaiming our identity, by realizing the part that we play. Another way, love requires burnout. Love requires burnout. Why do I say that? One of my daughters saddened me by a call a couple of years ago. She was married and given 250% to her husband and her children, and she was given 0% to herself. She was exhausted in every way you could possibly be. And I realized that while she was growing up, I had taught her that. I had taught her you could be superwoman and you can do everything. I had dragged myself through many things while being successful. We're passing on putting yourself last. Rest is optional. And we're missing the opportunity to let our children experience something different. Therefore, paying attention to those around us and what messages unconsciously we may be giving them is another way we can reclaim. And the third and final way is when that happened and I realized that I had played a part, I had a mind shift to legacy. I realized that my children and my loved ones, even my team and my colleagues, that they were learning from me by my actions and my inactions. They were watching me. And you know, if you have children around you, or you're a parent or a grandparent, they watch what you do and not necessarily what you say. When we make a yes and commit, because we love committing to others, we are nurturers. When we make a yes without thinking about what we're saying no to, then there's a possibility that we are saying no to our own health. And what happens? Well, sometimes our children, they grow up and they take on work. What happens is that they may be the one that works twice as hard, does twice the assignments, gets half the recognition, but they won't say anything because they're not accustomed to showing self-love for themselves. It's possible to love others and still love yourself. In other cases, they may grow up and enter certain relationships where they don't ask for what they need. They just give and give and give. The need for us to look at ourselves to see what role we play in the burnout, to recognize what we're passing on, the legacy that we're passing on, because there's different types of legacies. It could be money or a house or various jewelry or anything. But guess what? I realized that I was passing a legacy on that would live beyond me. I was passing a legacy on that if my children and my husband and my siblings picked up on, they could pass it on. I was passing on a legacy that could go from my children to my grandchildren to my great grandchildren. And it wasn't something that was going to happen just on special occasions, because every day when mom shows that she loves you, and part of your being loved is also loving yourself. And that right there, that was what made me change.
Thank you for sharing that. You really you peel the onion on this one. Because I think the all of it is important. But I think the one thing that we have to drill down on is that whatever we do, our daughters are going to copy. We are the first role model that our daughters see and imitate. And if they see us not loving ourselves, not setting those boundaries, not speaking up for ourselves, then they're not going to do that. They're going to do the opposite of what we desire for them to do because of what they saw us do. And I think that is so important and something that we often lose sight of because it's constantly like do to our children. But don't look at what I'm doing, but I need you to do. And it's so important that um, we understand that their eyes are watching us all the time, all the time. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Love that. So when we think about the legacy and we think about how it's important to have that self-love, how do you design a life that includes you? You prioritize that self-love while also understanding that you are the role model for your daughters. How do you design that lifestyle?
There's a practical way that it can be done where you can build rest into your schedule as well as mental wellness. For me, it's what I call my mental health break. I nickname it MHB. And that means each month, for me, I take a day and a half, and I am Donna. I am not mom, I'm not wife, not best friend, not sister. I'm just Donna. And during the course of that time, of course, when I first take that break, there are thoughts like, you didn't finish this project, you need to make sure this was done. What about next week? It's going to be so much happening. Yes, that you're going to experience. That's part of the part of getting into the part to rejuvenate yourself. But you will reach a part during your mental health break where you will start simply thinking, what do, does what do you want to do? What do I want to do in order to relax and come back fully charged? For me, it could be dancing or pretending I can sing. It could be watching old movies, doing puzzles, going for a walk, going to get something to eat, going to the city. Most of it doesn't cost any money. But at the end of it, what happens is you come back a different person. You come back as if you were on a mini vacation where you are rested, recharged. They are happy that you feel better and feel good about supporting you. Likewise, you are so glad. But it does require some prep. You would need to first make sure it's on their calendar, though it has to be planned way in advance. You would have to make sure that you have to, they have something to eat. Now, sometimes when we think about prepping, it's like, oh, that's going to take time. So I'm going to have to take time for myself. But we all know in the course of a month, there is some time that we come home and we are so exhausted by life that we may just sit down and we may just flick the television or do something that our mind doesn't have to be involved. All we're thinking about now is taking a special time and during that special time to relax and be purposeful about that time. And remind them, find out if they need anything from you before you take your break. That way, it can be a game changer for you. And you can start small. You can start with 30 to 60 minutes. Everybody's in a different place in the life cycle. For me, it took me a long time to 1.5 days. Someone else could be 1 hour. The other one is 3 hours. Somebody else could be a half a day. It's about protecting it, honoring it, and keeping your promise to yourself, because our integrity, our self-integrity is so important. The last thing I want to mention is when you talked about our daughters, I have 2 daughters and 1 son. Yes, they're going to watch mommy, but our sons have to be taught as well so that when they grow up and if they choose to get married and have children, they will have that sensitivity. They will say, "Oh, well, this is what my mom did, and I know how she came back and how she felt about it. So I'm going to support my wife in that capacity."
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many great things for us to really take into action. That mental health break is so important. And I love how you didn't define it. You know how so many times we have to say it's a mental health day. Um it's a mental health week, but it's the break. You established a break. You didn't define the break, but you established a break. And I think that's important for so many of us because we have to define everything that we do. But by just taking a break, like you said, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, half a day and a half, whatever it is, taking a break, establishing a break, and then allowing it to be your tradition, your ritual, your protocol is important for so many of us because that's the only way we're going to be able to reclaim, who we are, what we're doing. We're going to be able to have that self love because we're pouring into ourselves. And I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. For the working moms that are listening that may have some trouble in establishing that mental health break, how long did it take for you to actually be consistent with that break? And what tip would you give them if they feel, because you mentioned the prep and how we have to prep our families, we have to prep our homes, all the things. What would you give them to help them understand that prepping doesn't mean, and I'm guilty of this, well, was guilty of this, doesn't mean that you have to clean the house, the whole entire house from top to bottom. You have to make 3 meals if you're going to be gone for the whole entire day. Like, what does prep mean? Because so many, again, there goes the definition. So many of us define prep as all of this has to be done, but then we're exhausted. So when it is time for us to have that mental health break, we can't even have the break because we're trying to get off of the high of prepping for us to get away.
Yeah, you asked 2 questions. The second one, I mean, the first one, I'm going to wait a moment because there's something else I want to talk about that will tie into that. The second one, for instance, if you have a child that's, let's say, 5 years old, you can begin by saying, "Honey, uh, I love you. We've been doing this together, and now mommy's going to take 15 minutes. And mommy's going to put the timer on, and you see when it goes off, mommy's going to be back. Mommy is going to spend a little time with herself, taking care of herself, so I can take care and love you better." It is simply that you didn't clean the house, you didn't do anything, you just made sure that before you spoke to them, that you had something in the kitchen for them to eat. And it requires nothing about what you're doing around the house. It only requires you to make sure they have nourishment. And we know sometimes we do takeout, and sometimes we do those really quick, maybe not as nutritious meals that when you're running late from work, you go in the kitchen and in 20 minutes something's on the table. So don't think you're not preparing for anything other than to stop the clock for a predetermined time, and you can pick it back up when you finish your break. Y- You could stop the clock in between lunch and dinner, so you know that they're already taken care of. And you know your children well enough to know how much they can entertain themselves by playing and with their imagination, as well as the other tools that we have today with technology. It's simply freezing a moment in time and taking a deep breath, doing whatever you feel you need to do with that, and then coming back. That's what I would recommend you to do to start, and it will fall in place because it's more about the consistency. It's more about them observing you doing this and understanding it and starting to support it, and you will grow with them, and they will even help you. My children are adult children, but when it's time for my MHB, they'll tell me. My son will say, "Hey, mom, you want me to pick out some movies for you to watch?" My husband, I think he loves it more than I do at this point because he'll go in the other room and he'll watch some shows that he knows I don't want to watch, or he'll do. So it becomes a family thing. And everyone is involved in helping each other get what they need.
That is so good. I love that. It's a family thing. It becomes a family thing.
Yeah.
That is key. That is so key. So, can you tell us how we have the power to choose ourselves? That we have the power to have this MHB, that we have the power to have that self love. Can you tell us how we have that power?
Well, as women, we play so many different roles, and we can be in one role, and then we get a call from school or a call from the doctor's office, and then we in another role. We're very versatile, and we know how to switch on a dime. Okay. Therefore, this is just another shift. There are shifts that we have gone through in our businesses and careers, new positions, promotions. There's shifts that we've gone in relocation, family size, married, all the shifts we've gone through, and we excel at making shifts. But the thing that may challenge us is when we try to squeeze another thing into our schedule. That will tell you a lot about whether you have time for a mental health break. If you are working for yourself or you're working at a business and you say, I got to squeeze this one more thing into this week, it's probably only going to take 15 or 20 minutes. Or you volunteer to do things that are not mandatory. Oh, I can handle this because I know this will impress my supervisor. The team will love that I'm working hard for the success of the collective. If you do that easily, without thinking much, and then on the other hand, if you have a friend and that's the friend says, "Hey, can you help me?" We love helping our friends. This loving each other and loving mankind is what Jesus speaks about. That's what we need to do. However, if we say, "Don't worry, I got you back. We're going to make sure this happens," but we don't have enough time. So we squeeze things in our schedule that we don't have enough time. I'm just asking you to squeeze something that's going to be beneficial for you and your family and the legacy.
I
And the
love
last thing I want to say on this is a, a story. I'm the oldest of 8, and I promised my brothers and sisters as we were growing up, when it was time to leave home, I was going to take them in, help them get a credit card, first job, and stuff like that. So you can imagine we have an age difference. And there came to a point where it was too heavy playing that role. And I really wanted to tell them, but I was scared. I loved them. And I had given one more support than the other because they were at the beginning of their journey. And I knew they had different personalities. I mean, I wrestled with what to say and how to say, but finally, at a family dinner, I said it. And a couple of my siblings laughed at me. They said, "We were just waiting to see when you were going to stop." They said that we got this, but we didn't want to take that role away from you. The point I'm making about that is, as we journey through life in our adulthood, we take on a role and it's like a sweater, and then we take on another role and that's a jacket, and then we take another role on and that's a scarf. We take on roles sometimes without even turning around and looking to see if the people that we are serving can fly by themselves now, or whether they can lean on God a little bit more. That's how you can make the shift no matter where you are in life. You have to evaluate, am I giving my time away? I can still give it away, but I need to save 60 minutes for rejuvenating myself. Are there roles that I play or the people that I've supported that they should now be given the opportunity to find additional resources?
So good. Oh my goodness. There's so much to unpack there because I mean, it's true. We take on so much naturally that we never sit back and analyze, are we in alignment with this? Um, we never sit back. I know I don't. I don't do that, or I hadn't done that. Now I'm definitely more observant of what I say yes to, because by me saying yes, and I know you mentioned this before, I'm saying no to something else, and that something else is me. That something else is my family. Um, Something else is sleep. you know, so important for us to understand that all the way around. So I want to ask you this question, and I love the fact that you have been vulnerable throughout and have shared little snippets of what you've experienced. But I want to ask you what your Tabitha moment is. In the book of Acts, it mentions of a young lady named Tabitha. She was a servant of her community, providing and doing what was needed. But one day she became ill and died. But because of her good works, the apostle Peter, he heard, and then he came and resurrected her, and she became well, and she got up and started working in her community again. But like Tabitha, I believe we as working moms, we're just like her, where we work and we work and we serve and we serve. And then one day we become physically, we become emotionally, we become spiritually ill. Was there a time in your life where you became physically, emotionally, or spiritually sick and you needed resurrection? What was your Tabitha moment?
In 2018, my business was thriving. I had been in business for over 20 years. And the feeling that I was able to help provide, I had a team for that long length of period. And in 2018, I published my book, Aspects of Change. But there was something wrong. I had fell apart. I had success, but I had no joy, no happiness. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I was beyond burnt out. I canceled everything on my schedule for the next 2 weeks, not because I had miscellaneous stuff, but I'm appointments with clients. I couldn't give anybody anything, my family, my clients, and I went to bed. And for the next 2 weeks, I slept and I ate. I thought about what was going on. I realized that I had sacrificed me to the point that I could no longer serve God, my family, or myself. I I didn't know how I was going to get out of that valley. And that's when the mental health break started. After those 2 weeks, I went on my calendar because I felt better. I still needed to heal. I still had a long journey to go before I was able to give. But I put on my calendar for the rest of that year. And every year since then, I will put, I'll take the calendar and once a month for the entire year, I will put down my mental health break. Now, there are times when a vacation comes up or someone has a wedding or something like that. And then the thing I do, and I recommend you do, is if you have your time up there and something happens externally, that you reschedule it. I never put two in the same month, but I will reschedule it, even if it requires me to reduce time. So if I had planned to do a day and a half, and then I can't, then I will say from 12 to 6 on this particular Saturday. And I put it on my entire family's calendar. So on my children, my husband, my best friend. That was my tap at the moment because I really thought I had lost myself. I didn't have any desire. And I hope that those who listen to this, that they don't wait for that. They don't wait until you literally fall apart, because that's what happened to me. That you look at the signs of what's going on. You don't want to get to the part where you can't honor your commitment to God and your family and your children. You never want to get to that point. And I did.
Thank you for sharing that. That's the whole purpose of the podcast, is that we're able to share our life experiences so that the men and women who are listening do not have to experience a Tabitha moment. Yes, the Tabitha moments are essential in our shifts, in the mindset shift, and in those shifts that are necessary for us to rest, to have those mental health breaks. But many of those Tabitha moments we do not have to experience. So I appreciate you sharing that, because there's so many of us that don't need to have a Tabitha moment. So I really am grateful that you're able to be here to share your experience, so that others can learn from it and take away that mental health break, because we all need that. We all need that. So again, I just want to say thank you, Donna, for being here. You have empowered us to understand that we can reclaim ourselves with rest, that we can design a life that includes ourselves, taking that mental health break, and that we always have the power to choose ourselves. We have that power. God has given us that power. God tells us that He's given us the authority and dominion of things of the earth. And so we have the power in us to choose ourselves. So thank you for sharing that with us. And may all of us leave today, listening from you that it's essential for us to reclaim ourselves, to reclaim ourselves. We're not being selfish. It is self-love. It is essential for us to reclaim who we are. Where can all of us who are listening today learn more about you, Donna, and what you are doing in your own community and in your network?
You can go to LinkedIn or DJ Consulting Services Facebook page. You can go to Amazon and look under my name for Aspects of Change. You can reach out via any of those platforms to email me, to connect with me. And if there's anyone who would like a follow-up, a 15-minute complimentary follow-up, only for the purpose of them telling me where they are, and I give them the first step in how to create that mental health break, then I'm willing to do that, and they can reach out on my calendar for a 15-minute consultation. Simply a consultation. I hope that I can help someone on this podcast not have to wait until it's too late to reclaim themselves. And I thank you so very much for what you do for working women and the men that they love, for our children, and for being a vessel. And my last words, I would ask the listeners to ask themselves, what do you want your legacy to be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you want your legacy to be? It's so, so, so important. Donna, I thank you so much for being with us today. And I thank you all for listening to this episode. I want you to know that God is reminding you and I that in this season of life, we need rest. We need to rest in Him. And if you're joining us at tomorrow's Empowering the Working Mom Breakfast, then you'll gain additional insight on how the power of rest allows you to reclaim your identity. We're going to dig deeper in it tomorrow, and I cannot wait for us to be together in the room. Don't forget to bless another working mom by sharing this episode with her so she can also gain those aha moments and empowerment to rest. Until next time, and may God bless you and may you rest in Him always.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Empowering the Working Mom podcast. As you reflect on the empowering moments, remember that you are not alone in this journey. It takes a whole village to be a working mom. Discover how big your village is by joining fellow working moms in our private Empowering Working Mom online community, where we continue this conversation and support each other every step of the way. Until next time, you got this because God has you.